Hi, this is Amisha Gandhi with Signal 8 for Under the Influence, and we are at DigimarCon 2025 in San Francisco. And I'm here with Mario Vanesco, who's with the University of Phoenix, and he's the Director of Analytics and AI. But an interesting fact that I learned, and he's actually the opening keynote this morning, was that he didn't know what his job title was, but he was hired because there was a need for Gen AI or AI. And they're like, hey, we need something around AI, but we don't know what that should be. We don't know what your title is. So tell us a little bit about that and your journey and, how, what are we seeing and what are we doing?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the invitation, for the opportunity to speak in this conference. It's been a lot of fun and meeting interesting people. So yeah, back to the anecdote that I told you this morning. It was very interesting when I got a call from a recruiter. Then in general, the requirements sound interesting in terms of analytics, data science, but when I spoke to my boss and to the CMO of the company, I said, well, guys, what is the job description? He said, no, we don't have any. We really need you to have your expertise and come and tell us what to do. And that was challenging, interesting, but also intimidating. Am I going to be able to figure something out, come up with an interesting project? And apparently I have, because it's been over a year and they liked what I've done so far. And we have some use cases where we use Gen AI, not in the common senses of chatbots and others, but more in terms of establishing the presence of the university in these new search engines, content analytics, and other areas that we are exploring.
Mm-hmm. And so, some of the folks may not have seen, and some of our audience probably, have not seen your keynote, which I thought was very fascinating. What are some of the key takeaways from your talk this morning?
Well, what I was hoping is that, and my talk is called The Intuition Behind How the LLMs Work, is for people to understand in a non-trivial, but not very deep way how these engines and how these algorithms work. I firmly believe that if you understand beyond the basics, then you can think about different use cases. Your creativity will be sparked. So that's what I try to open up that black box, tell them what are the constraints, what is the scope of these things, because it's not magic, it's mathematics, it's linear algebra at a scale.
Okay.
That's where the magic happens. It's not trivial. I'm not saying that this is super easy. It's complex, but at the core of these engines is matrix multiplication, linear algebra, and a little bit of calculus at the scale. And that's where it learns the patterns, learns the reasoning, learns the meaning and the semantics, and it's able to
and the reasoning, right?
The reasoning, have this type of conversation. So when I understood that, when I would start picking into the literature, the technical literature, and distilling that thing, I was able to come up with some of the use cases.
Okay. What are some of those use cases?
As I mentioned, one thing that is worries all the industries, I would say, in this case, is how SEO is changing.
That's right. We've been talking a lot about
exactly.
that,
20 years ago, everybody was worried about showing up in the top 10 links, blue links that Google provided in the web page. Now we are worrying about showing up in the artificial intelligence overviews. Or if you ask ChatGPT or Perplexity, you want to be present in those answers. How we're going to do that? So far, we don't have a clear answer, because those engines get trained in all this literature and all these articles and all these things. It goes and makes a representation numerically, and vectorial embeddings of that goes into a deeper numerical space, which really nobody knows how it works, really. And then how can we show up there? So that's where we are trying to understand, reverse engineer, understanding when all these engines provide answers to a set of prompts that we have, if those answers reflect us positively, if those answers are sourced from our materials, or is being sourced from detractors or threads that are very negative to us, and if that includes any link back to our company. And so far, we are understanding that, we're establishing that baseline and formulating strategies to be present.
I mean, how can someone work, like in your understanding now, as far, because we're all still learning and figuring it out, what can companies do, because before we were setting up our websites and content to be geared towards picking up in SEO and link back programs and all that. Now, what should our strategy be in approaching with LLMs? Like, how does that change what we do? What are some of the changes we should be thinking about as we're constructing the content and becoming an authority to an LLM?
Right. One of the things that we are seeing is that in some of the answers, a certain set of PDFs are showing up more often than others. And when we are thinking and trying to reverse engineer, again, because nobody knows the best practices yet, we don't know how these engines pick up content. But it seems that the more structured, the more humanly readable formats is more likely that the LLMs will pick that up. Before it was about tags, about keywords, and about some structure, and now is what about headlines, concise summaries, meaningful content, because these engines can reason, right?
Yep.
And then that's what is being picked up. So now that we know we have some templates of the reports, of the specifically PDFs that are being reflected in those answers, okay, let's model the other content after this. Let's understand what do these reports have that these others don't,
Right.
and why. And that's the first step. That's our first step. Mm-hmm.
No, and then that's really interesting. And then the other thing that we're really talking about, we were talking to Freshworks this morning. They were talking about workflows, right? So not just about Chat GPT, but now we're really looking, especially in marketing, we're looking at agentic AI. So AI is actually making some decisions and making some actions based on the decision-making process, right? So it's already doing some actions. So what do you see around that, and where is that going to take us?
Yeah, we are seeing, and I'm exploring personally some of that agentic type of things, right? Because the LLMs, as you mentioned, good to reason, good to plan, but not good to execute.
Okay.
And then now we have to start coding those tools or using those tools, a tool that can go to a database and extract information. The challenges are, for instance, in one of the projects that we have is if the CMO or an executive has a question about performance, it's not something that is an approximation, it's something that is in a database, those are numbers and are deterministic.
Right.
So we need to make sure that it's grounded. Right? Because if I want to see why my enrollments decline and how much, it's not something that the LLM can make up. Something that is in a database and is precise. So those are the challenges that we are seeing. For the things that we are working on, this is the age of the year of agents. It's going to be challenging to orchestrate those agents. It's going to be challenging to interpret structured information with those agents. But those are the things that we are doing as well. And again, it's still open. It's evolving.
This is the beginning.
It's the beginning.
Right.
And then if you ask me for best practices, I think we are developing those. We are learning about it, yeah.
So we're like the LLM, we're learning too, right? And I'm finding that, the LLM, as you're working with it, you can create your own Chat GPT, you can create GPTs and different things for functions, and it's a learning. What are some of the ways that someone can reskill their team? And because you're at the University of Phoenix, what are you seeing around education around this? Because it's changing so much. That means we have to keep educating, reskilling our team. So where should we make our investments in training?
Right. Well, we the company, the University of Phoenix, as a company policy, has given us premium access to Copilot.
Okay.
It's one of those things.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
It's encouraging people to use it. And obviously the easiest way to use it is in a web browser. You start asking questions. I need to create a report, and it gives you all those set of instructions, right? But the next step will be to actually use this in more profound ways.
Right.
It connects to your data.
Okay.
It can enrich the answers with proprietary and domain-specific knowledge. That will be another thing. In particular, I am doing content analytics, and I would like to use these LLMs, the power of the LLMs that encode content as numbers, as an entity, a numerical entity, and how can I manipulate that for recommendation, right? For performance. Because in the past, what we do is we have features, we have a set of characteristics and variables. We use machine learning on discrete things, but now this is a very rich representation. How can I use that? But that's in the future, that's in the roadmap, and those are the steps that we are taking.
That's really awesome and really interesting, and you providing the kind of the platform for people to learn and grow. And I think that's what people need to do. You need to experiment and try it out. I think if you don't try an experiment, you're going to get left behind in the dust. And then also your teams, right? And try to understand what other folks are doing. I think we're all learning from each other and sharing the feedback, and then we'll grow. And it's not something to be scared of. It's a tool, and it could just make it better, and that allows us to spend time doing other things, or maybe getting to more of those. Somebody said today, the return to creativity, right? And it allows for some more thinking and other things that we maybe didn't have time to do, right? So,
correct. So far, I've been seeing that as an accelerator, as an assistant, as something that can make me more productive. Obviously, I've been coding and doing SQL and databases for years, but I don't know everything. And I still have to go and research. And this thing helps me and makes me more productive. Same thing for content writers, content creators. I'm seeing that as an accelerator, not as a replacement.
No, that's awesome. So it's an accelerator, not replacement. You heard it here first. Thank you so much, Mario, for joining us.
Absolutely.
And thank you.
Well, hopefully even